This episode is brought to you by Snapple. Want to know another Snapple fact? The first hot air balloon passengers were a sheep, a duck, and a rooster. Ridiculous. Check out Snapple.com to find ridiculously flavored Snapple near you.
Welcome to the RuPaul's Drag Race Recap Show for All-Star Season 9, Episode 6, titled National Drag Convention Roast. My name is Joe Batance, and I am joined, as always, by one conventional co-host. I'm so sorry, that was a placeholder, and I didn't fix that. Okay, from the podcast pod is my co-pilot. Please say...
Literally choke.
To Mr. Taylor, the Latte Boy. Hello, Taylor.
Hey, Taylor. Hey, Taylor. Hey, Joe.
Hi,
how are you
doing, Taylor? I'm doing fine, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
By the way, God, my memory is so bad now. I was like, when we were talking before the show, I was like, oh, this will be interesting to bring up on the air during our little banter that we have. And I don't know what we were talking about. What were we talking about right before we went on the air?
We talked about my life of crime.
No. That's just between us girls. I'm talking about right before I hit record right now.
We talked about the latest episode of Pod as my co-pilot. I'm not going to say what we talked about because I don't think...
I know. I'm trying to remember what it was that I was like, oh, this is going to be great to bring up on the... I don't remember what it was. So if you want to hear that kind of sparkly banter... It's the same thing over on Just Between Us Girls. Yeah, we talked about Taylor's life of crime. We talked about what I'm doing for a new social media thing. We talked about different jobs that we had. It was actually it was a good fun little Just Between Us Girls. And you can get that over at patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia. Join at the executive tier level and above to get that. Or if you're on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and just swipe up and hit subscribe there to get that. By the way, this is the month of a lot of announcements from different people. Like Apple had their big announcement. You know, everyone's announcing things. I think, in fact, I know we're going to have a big announcement next weekend. You have to wait around to see. Big announcement, not only for public feed people, but Patreon people as well. So stick around next week for that big announcement. All right, let's get into this show. This week, Georges wins the straw poll and the queens take turns roasting each other at the National Drag Convention Roast. On the runway, the category was Atomic Blonde. On the main stage, Plastique Tiara and Angeria Paris Van Michaels were named the top 2 All-Stars of the week and battled it out in a lip-sync battle for their charity. That makes no sense. In the end, Angeria won the lip-sync and the right to give one queen the snip, and that queen was Roxxxy Andrews. Taylor the Latte Boy, the one, the only, the legend. Did the right queens win the challenge? Did the right queen win the lip sync? And did the right queen get the snip? 3 questions you have to answer.
No.
Okay, very good. No, okay, you didn't think the right queens won the roast challenge?
No, I think that decision was storyline driven. That was not based on actual quality of the performances. I think that they made such a big deal about Georges going out of her comfort zone and doing something completely different and working beyond last week's of the I feel like I'm always letting you down and all of that kind of thing, that Georges should have won over Angeria as far as being in the top 2. I feel as though the reason that they picked Angeria was because they knew Angeria would probably go for Roxxxy. In the lip sync, I think that Plastique did a much better job. And even though there was that moment in which she stopped lip syncing when the male voice came and pointed at Angeria, that was worth it to me. That right there where she should have won, let alone all of the floor work and all of that kind of thing. That was funny. That was funny to do that.
So, okay, I have done no research on this, but online I have seen it referenced once, so I don't know how accurate this is, that this is the 3rd time Plastique has done something like that. And I don't know if that means this season or in all her lip syncs. So, I don't know. But that's what I saw online. I have no data to support that.
Okay. Well, even still, it made sense to do it. But even just from between the floor work and the song itself was just, I don't necessarily like that song. It's one of my least favorite songs from the 90s, but it felt more plastique song than Angeria's to me. So, and as far as the snip at the end, now we know that next week is an acting challenge. So she really didn't pick the right, that seemed more, other than from a numbers game, it made sense. And that could be the reason that she uses it. Cause at this point, I think Roxxxy is one of the people that has the most pins, but it just felt like it wasn't worth it. She knows it's not going to be worth it. She even said that. She goes, I know this is going to bite me in the ass, but snip, snip. I think that she would have been better doing something like a snipping, given what we know now about the challenge, snipping like Nina might have been a better person to snip at this point. What do you think?
I agree with you. I don't think the Right Queens won the challenge. I think I probably would have given it to Georges and Vanjie. We'll get more into that. We'll get the roast. Mm-hmm. In terms of the lip sync, it's so funny. To me, Angeria did win the lip sync, but I see your argument. I just think it depends on your interpretation of that song. But I want to go back to that song. I don't know anything about that song, right? But remember that scene, and there are a bunch of movies that are like this, but this is just the first one that comes in my mind. But Goodfellas has that iconic one shot, single camera, like long shot where they go through the restaurant. He's introducing all the characters, and it famously doesn't cut away. It follows him from the car into the nightclub into this, right? And there's some song playing, and he's introducing who all the characters are. This, even though I'm not a huge fan of this song to me would be in the Joe Batance version, Fat Fellas. It would be this song of me, because to me, this song, like, I can smell this song. And what I mean is, it just smells like a gay bar in the 90s. And this just to me is the theme song of every gay bar in the 90s.
You can smell the smoke machine and Jupe cologne.
Yes, 100%. It brought back, even though, again, I never listened to this song. I didn't even know what the name of it was. But when I heard it, I was like, oh, I know this song. And it was just being gay in the 90s to me. Every memory that comes with that smell, taste, touch, everything. And so I think, I think Angeria had a take that was closer to mine than that. And then in terms of the Right Queen get the snip is like, it's like, who else are you going to give it to? It really is at this point, like, because they don't know who it's coming, is like, Roxxxy has the most badges. She's the one that seems to be at this point sort of in the lead. And so I was even thinking about it right now. You're not going to look. I have the list of queens right here. You're not crossing off Chanel, right? No.
Right.
Georges, no. Plastique, she couldn't even do Plastique. Roxxxy, yes. Vanjie doesn't seem to be on any kind of tear. Angeria is the one doing it. Gottmik, just no. And then Nina West, yeah. Maybe I might have done Gottmik, but she just got it. So it'd be kind of
just got it. So
yeah. So Rox, and by the way, I'm ready to get into the show. So because I'm so anxious to get into the show, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we are going to talk about the rest of the episode.
It's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Look, Bumble knows you're exhausted by dating. All the must not take yourself too seriously and 6'1" since that matters. And
What do I even say other than, hey? Well, that's why they're introducing an all-new Bumble, with exciting features to make compatibility easier, starting the chat better, and dating safer. They've changed, so you don't have to. Download the new Bumble now.
And we are back. All right. After the lip sync, Roxxxy has mixed feelings. The girls comfort an emotional Roxxxy Andrews. Meanwhile, Gottmik calls out Roxxxy for her alligator tears and mentions that Gottmik finds it hard to believe Roxxxy didn't know where Angeria was standing. The next day, RuPaul entered the workroom to announce this week's mini challenge. It's a straw poll, RuPaul is going to ask a question of the group. The queens will answer with paddles that represent each contestant. The person whose answer matches the popular opinion the most times will be the winner. In the end, Georges won the challenge and an important privilege in the main challenge. Let's stop here.
Okay.
Stop here. And let's talk about everything that happened. Not much to talk about with the announcement or the mini challenge, I don't think. But let's talk about everything that happened after the last lip sync. Any big thoughts here? It's a very Roxxxy-centered thing.
I think you're seeing and I believe somebody even mentioned this, like the game is actually really happening now. Of where now that they're all, it's not just where, well, you got the pin last week, so I have to give it to you because I have to block you from getting another pin next week. It's now it's starting to get where there's more of a strategy to it than I think there was before. And I guess we talked, I think, at pretty length about the crocodile tears last week, but I also think that we, at this point, Roxxxy knew what she was getting into. She had to know, especially when she knew that they weren't all going home. We saw this with All Stars 7 was the last one where nobody went home with the all winter season. And even if not, then if she wasn't doing that, then she was going to be sending somebody home like they did on All Stars 2. So I guess, but she also never had to do that. Now that I think about it, she never had to send anybody home on All Stars 2. Because she did win she won the first week.
Yeah.
And that's when she sent home Coco.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'm not done at all, or whatever that famous line is.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe this is sort of the realism of I'm preventing somebody from moving forward, but I also think she knows how to make really good TV too. So I don't know what I'm saying at this point.
I know what you're saying. I think it's fake. I think it's all performative. Why? I mean, here's the deal. I know Robert disagrees with me, and I was listening to Rulaska Thoughts from last week, and I thought of all these different arguments I could have with Robert. So I'm going to save that for Rulaska Thoughts. But
okay,
the truth of the matter is, there's no reason because there are no stakes in this show. Robert thinks there are stakes. I don't think that there are stakes. So preventing someone from getting a badge when they're all getting it and she has got, it's just like, girl, even the person who got snipped was like, it's not that serious,
Yeah.
And like when Gottmik is like making fun of her openly and in confessionals for being so upset. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Why are you crying over this? Like crying. Like when Gottmik walks in is like sobbing.
Yeah.
And it's just like she just so badly it shows how much she was affected by being called a bitch during season 5.
And that's what I think too, is that she really, even the act of removing Coco from All Stars 2, they really didn't if she was the first one to do something like that. We've seen now over multiple seasons the ramifications of removing a player from the game. And this is probably more in her head now, regardless of if it was performative or not, because, Gottmik has a huge following and she also doesn't want to come off as a bitch and chop Angeria 2 weeks in a row. So it is where I think it could be a little of both. I also agree with you that there's really no stakes, because at some point, eventually, as we saw this week, Ru's going to start throwing out pins at everybody like they're candy, just to manipulate so that who she wants to be in the top is what's going to happen. But I think that there may be a little bit of both things can be true, that it could be performative, but also Roxxxy is realizing this could come back and bite me in the ass.
But in the old All-Star rules, I could see how that would emotionally affect you, because you're effectively ending someone's, like, in other words, as a queen who's on the show, firsthand all of the work, the money, effort, sacrifice that you've had to make, you had to use to get on the show and to end someone's run yourself. I could see really affecting you and devastating you. That's not happening here. You're not taking anyone's coin away. The charity is getting the money. You're not sending them home. They're going to get to show their looks. You're going to see them the next week. And there's also a chance, because you don't know that, like, next week, that there's not even a chance that there's a chance that it might not even matter. So yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't get the tears. I could see feeling badly, like, sorry, but like crying.
Again, it might be partially that she's trying to make good TV, but she also, I think there was a lot of, I'm gonna make this hyperbolic right now, but I mean, there was a lot of trauma related to 5 and All Stars 2. And her portrayal of that, of where she was a bully on 5 and she was considered by many to be undeserving of being in the top 4 for All Stars 2. And that comes with, every time that you do something, she has to be on some level overthinking, is this going to come back? And am I going to be seen as a,
Yes.
Am I going to be seen as a bully again? Am I going to be seen as somebody that is taking away from somebody who truly deserves? We're also talking about the fact that she, we have talked about how Gottmik seems to be able to, like, do no wrong in, at least up until this week, in the eyes of many viewers. So is this something where she's like, the equivalent of, like, kicking a puppy kind of thing?
Well, look, here's the deal. You just made me realize right now. You just made me realize this. Maybe it's not a bad move, because even though we think it's performative, I do at least, even though I think it's a little much, that even though all this happened and she did this, you're not going to think, and she made it very sure, that she's a bitch. So, like, in other words, even though it's a lot and it's annoying, it's not going to happen. The one thing you're not going to do is, she's a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's fine. I think we've talked that out of it already. Any thoughts on the mini challenge?
I love that she's doing this. I know they did this last season on 16. I feel like they might have actually also done it on 15. I very much enjoy this part of it. I want it to be something that is folded into every season, like the reading challenge, like, like those type of mini. I would rather that than watching them dance with Tinky Winky. There was some actual, there were, some slight stakes to this versus whoever danced best with the Teletubby, wins the week or whatever. And I think it also allows for to shake things up. I mean, Angeria was clearly bothered that everybody thought she was the most delusional. And, I think that it adds to storyline. It adds to possible conflict between, queens, which makes for better TV. And it's something where you can kind of play along a little bit with the group, because in the time it took them all to put their paddles up, I know that I was trying to think they'll all pick this one or they'll all pick that, and for the most part, I was there were a couple of them that I was surprised, but it's a fun little mini challenge that also has a little bit of shade to it. We love shade on the show. And it's something that I hope we see every season.
For people who are following along, aren't watching the show, they had about 6 questions that they showed. It was One was which queen would most likely run for president. Nina West was the winner of that one. Which queen is most likely to win America's heart with her big juicy ass? And that would be Roxxxy. Which queen is most likely to be Secretary of Delusion? And this comes up later, and they voted Angeria. Which queen is most likely to deny the outcome of All Stars 9? They said Roxxxy. And which queen is most likely to have not voted in a presidential election? Georges. And which queen is most likely to be Secretary of Shade? And they voted Roxxxy. That one was kind of surprising to me. Which one surprised you?
I thought they were going to say Vanjie for the Shade. I thought they were going to say Vanjie or Gottmik.
Yeah. So, and then Georges landed up winning the mini challenge. And so before this even started, when RuPaul came in, they did this voting PSA. Did you have any thoughts on that voting PSA, Taylor?
It was dumb. They could have had where each of them read from a script where they all said the same thing and they just sort of superimposed everybody saying different lines, and it would have been much more effective than having weird like whispering, vote.gov. Sort of it was again a wasted opportunity. It is important for everyone to register to vote, and it is something that, I mean, this is a very, very, very important election this year. And I appreciate the fact that Ru always has all of the queens dance with the signs at the end and that sort of thing. But I also think that it's something that now we just sort of see it and don't even think about it at the end. She had an opportunity to remind everybody how important it is to actually vote, and it was a wasted opportunity.
This PSA made me not want to vote. I was like, oh, this... Can I vote for the not to vote because of this PSA?
Well, plus there was the weird, like the first one was Nina, and she was trying to do this weird, like sexy, like hi kind of thing that I was like, oh, no,
stop.
I told Babalu last night your comment on that Nina looks like a thumb with a little tiny face gone in the middle. And then we both giggled about that every time Nina did a confessional, because that's all I see is just a big thumb with a little tiny face on it.
A little tiny face on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing about this?
No, we're moving on. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So, and this is something that I think just sort of speaks to, I am not the biggest Gottmik fan this season. There is something about Gottmik that just sticks in my craw, and I don't know what it is. But when they're all standing around the table waiting for Ru to come in, there is, I get that they tell them, everybody laugh or everybody make up, there is something over the top with the faces that she makes and the laugh where she is clearly trying too hard. And
really? I gotta look now.
It is, it's just, which I've noticed that in other, where we laugh, we like throw our head back a little too much, or we do the whole thing of where we kind of make our eyes really big. And there's just something about it that just annoys the shit out of me.
Like when RuPaul announced that the special guest was Ruta Lee. And they were all like, Ruta Lee! And I was like, who the fuck is Ruta Lee?
But then they had to explain who Ruta Lee was when they showed her when she was sitting with the critiques. Yeah.
Chanel was like, of course, I love Ruta Lee.
The only thing I know about Ruta Lee is my ex used to, down here in Tampa Bay is where Home Shopping Network is. And it's where it's filmed and all of that kind of thing. And my ex worked for Home Shopping. So he was in the studios all the time and would see all sorts of celebrities. And Ruta Lee used to sell like these e-cigarettes. Like back before vaping was a thing, it was these like electronic cigarettes. And where they came in all different colors, and they came in where you can get flavors and all that kind of stuff. And it was always something where my ex would come in and be like, Ruta Lee was in the studio today. And then we would both just giggle about that for no reason. I've
never heard of her.
She's one of those that, they should, where she's been a guest star in TV shows and sitcoms for decades, all through like the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Yeah. I'm sure she was on at least one or two Murder, She Wrotes. She probably has a love boat under her
now you're making me want to look her up. Let me see here.
She also talked a lot about all of the Rat Pack that she like hung out with, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. She like listed all the members of the Rat Pack at one point.
Yeah, she should have fucked them. It was really weird, actually.
Yeah.
Well, I know her latest thing was she was in something called That's Estertainment. I don't know what that is. Let's see here. She does a lot of Christmas movies. Life with Bob, Power Rangers, Saved by the Bell, Roseanne. Let me go to the 70s. She was on The Love Boat. One episode. She was on The Law and Harry McGraw and Jake and the Fat Man. Charles in Charge. Yeah, she Murder, She Wrote. One episode, she played Renee. She was a guest on every sort of like major like hotel she was on. Fantasy Island, Chips. Yeah, girl, Madam's Place, Simon and Simon.
Okay.
Three's Company. Yeah, you go down and you're right. Vegas, Mork and Mindy. It's like Love American style. It's like if there was a show, they're like, have we had our Ruta Lee episode yet? Because we have to do it. Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting.
How old is she?
She's 89.
Okay. She looks great for 89.
She looks great for 89. She looks great for 89. By the way, what was the point of the pit crew in this whole thing?
Because it was sponsored by the underwear company.
Oh.
I thought the same thing, but then they did the close up of their little underwear and said sponsored by whatever.
Because usually they have them do, even if it's just to push a thing in, but they just walked out and stood there. And I was like, what was the point? Yeah, okay, now we know. Okay,
I'm fine with it because they were both fucking hot.
They were both really hot. Because sometimes the pit crew can be kind of like, but they were
sinewy.
Both really hot. They were both very, very, very hot. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. For this week's All-Star Challenge, RuPaul informed the girls that they will take turns roasting each other in the National Drag Convention Roast. As the winner of the main challenge, Georges won the right to set the lineup. In the workroom, Georges establishes the lineup, and it is as follows. I will tell you. It's Chanel, Georges, Plastique, Roxxxy, Vanjie, Angeria, Gottmik, and Nina West. Georges reveals she's going to portray a butch character. Angie reminisces about her time on her season's roast. Nina discusses the difficulty of going last and tells Georges that this slight will be remembered. The slight being putting her last. Any discussions here? Did you want to say about the announcement of the All-Star Challenge? Everything that happens in the workroom?
I mean, I think that we have talked ad nauseum on various previous seasons about the whole idea of placement in a roast. And I think it's funny that you've talked about second is, you've said that second is the best place to go, right? Isn't that correct?
In a roast, first or second, yeah.
First or second. So I found it fun where she was like, second is the best place. And I thought, are they listening to Drag Race Recap? Or are they getting their notes?
I hope so.
I think that from a strategic standpoint, putting Nina last was a good idea. But I also think that that was one where Nina was either going to sink or swim. I think that she saw that as, because she always tries to come off as the nice queen. I think she thought that there was a chance that she was going to sink. And, the whole, like, I'm going to remember that was sort of like okay, that's not who you are. And that's not, that just felt, again, performative between the two of them.
Yeah, it seemed like they were trying to drum up some drama because again, there's no stakes, so I wouldn't need to be that angry. In terms of the lineup, I don't know. I don't understand where this idea is. Maybe in this group of queens that Nina West is like this gifted comedy queen. I mean, they act and they have the whole season like she's a Jinx or Bianca Del Rio, depending on the type of challenge, or some other sort of hilarious queen. Whereas in terms of if you're doing the lineup, which I got the sense Georges was maybe trying to really do a good lineup. If you're really going to do a good lineup, I would have put someone more high energy at the end. I would have put Vanjie or Angeria at the end if I'm trying to have a good show. I don't know. And even Nina's like, I don't know why they think I'm a comedy queen in terms of roasts. And so that was and Georges even says like, oh yeah, Nina I think is going to do really well. I better put her at the end. I need to stop her. And I was like, Nina? Were you ever thinking Nina would be good at a roast? I'm not saying she's not a comedy queen. I'm saying specifically a roast.
I mean, maybe they're just kind of going in broad categorizations of if it was a fashion challenge and she had to do the lineup of a fashion show. Okay, who am I going to? I'm going to put Plastique at the end because she's the one that always comes with these amazing looks. So maybe she wasn't necessarily thinking specifically of the roast, but just the fact that it's a comedy challenge, and they've all decided that Nina is a great, quote unquote, great comedy queen. So maybe that's why she put her there.
Mm-hmm.
It might not have been quite as well thought. It might not have been as nuanced a thought as
it's also George's.
You and I are thinking about.
Yeah. Next thing is the show sort of gives away the conceit of the show during the B-roll of the workroom. Right after this moment, they're showing them just sort of working.
Mm-hmm.
Where have you seen? I can't remember which one specifically. It might even be Angeria or Nina.
I think I know what you're going to say.
So they have like notebooks filled with jokes. One of them is typed. One of them they're typed out.
Yes. I thought the exact same thing.
Like do they see what we can see? What they're looking at, and also too, no one's writing. They're all just casually sitting around chatting because you can tell if you do the timeline of this episode, everything's done the same day. This is some of the episodes are done in one day. It's a one and done day. Because Ruta Lee's wearing the same fucking outfit in the main stage workshop and on the main stage. And so they're just hanging out, just talking until it's time to do whatever the next step is. Maybe you know what? They're probably waiting their turn to go into the workshop. And so they're just sitting around chatting because this is obviously going to be a big topic. But these jokes were clearly pre-written. They knew they were doing them. And there's we'll get to it in the roast, how I knew. Not just, a co-host, an Afterthought co-host called me yesterday to ask my thoughts on the show, and particularly the scandal. And I was saying, I'll just say it now. If you notice during the roast, this is evidence that all the jokes were pre-written.
Yes.
Either by the queens, their friends, or Nikki Glaser, is that none, except for one, George's had a throwaway joke. Every other joke was never about anything happening in the competition. They were all just sort of general jokes on their character. Never, George's made a joke about Chanel not having any badges. That was the only joke about what was going on or what's been happening in the show or anything like that. Everything could have been written before they even walked in the room. And that was sort of one of the signs that these were pre-written jokes. Do you have any thoughts on anything I just said? Or
I was going to say that it was clear. I thought it was the funniest roast that they've ever done.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The jokes were good, but nobody. You would figure at the very least somebody would have welcomed, somebody would have tripped over a joke. And we didn't get that. They all seem very relaxed. And I think that a big section of that is that pre-typed page that you're talking about was there. It wasn't that they were writing out the jokes. It's that, okay, here's your jokes. Practice them, practice saying them so that you've got them you got them ready for the show, because everyone seemed super relaxed. Everyone seemed very, I would hope that the girls, everybody got their own sheet kind of thing, so that the other girls, it was genuine reactions when they laughed at stuff. I would hope that.
Let me go back here. But let's save this for the roast. I think I know where you're going. But I think what you're saying is you think the producers gave them the jokes.
Absolutely, 100%. I think the producers gave them the jokes.
All right. Let's talk about that at the roast. Let's go to the main stage workshop. On the main stage, the girls take turns at workshopping their jokes in front of Michelle Visage and Ruta Lee. Chanel gags at Ruta. Roxxxy needs to focus on delivery. Michelle gives Angeria some advice. Plastique can't land a joke. And Nina has trouble being mean. On runway day, the girls get ready for the main stage. Gottmik wants to show that she can bring the funny, even if it's somebody else's. Plastique decides to bring an anime character to the roast. Roxxxy feels like she's a target, and the girls awkwardly try to explain to Angeria why they voted her the most delusional. Taylor, thoughts on everything here? Workshop run. Let's start with the workshop. Anything with the workshop?
The workshop, I thought, was, again, comedy legend Michelle Visage giving advice on, much like she's, an actress and singer extraordinaire and everything. That was kind of a throwaway. But other than for them to have a little bit of time working directly with Ruta Lee, was it made sense to me that Chanel would be the most excited out of all of them, just because.
You're right.
That is sort of one of those that I at least know the name Rudely, but again, I know because she sold e-cigarettes 20 years ago. But I could see where Plastique Tiara has no fucking clue who Rudely is.
There's no maybe Chanel. You're right. Maybe Chanel knows who
possibly
Rudely is.
Nina.
Possibly Nina.
But Chanel definitely, I think of all of them, would have been the one that was most genuinely excited when they said.
I'm being
Rudely.
honest. I think the only one person who knew who fucking Rudely was RuPaul. RuPaul seemed genuinely excited that she was there, and we know RuPaul loves old 70s TV and Murder She Wrote, and so would be very excited for Rudely. And I think she was the only one. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that explains why Rudely was there.
It's been a very weird rotation of judges this season. It's been a lot of who? And I also get that I'm old, so a lot of the younger ones, like I had no idea who this Anita was a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't know who the brothers Osborne were. But even the older ones, I'm sort of again like, who?
The brothers Osborne, I think I only knew who they were because I think when the brother came out, that was a big deal in country music.
Okay.
But I think so. I remember the headline. I couldn't tell you a single fucking song that they sing.
Right. But the only other thing that I could think of is I really liked Nina's glasses.
Oh, really?
Nina had glasses on at one point, and I was like, ooh, my next pair of glasses, I want to get glasses like those. Even though I kind of have glasses like those, but I liked the fact that they were like thicker on top. But that was really it. The moment where Angeria was asking why they all think she's delusional was interesting. And kudos to Georges for saying something, regardless of if it made sense or not, because if everybody voted for her, except for, I guess Angeria was the only one who didn't vote for herself, and says, why did everybody vote that? And everybody gets quiet, then you're all a bunch of cowards.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have that in my notes.
There's a reason that you did it. It's clearly affecting Angeria. Let's, help a bitch out.
Well, it's also really weird because, it's not fair to us as a viewer too, because they're seeing something because if all of them vote for her, right. I haven't seen any evidence on this show that she's delusional. I haven't. And so, but it's clearly something that I even think the question was based on stuff that they've gotten in the confessionals. The producers are like, a lot of the queens are saying this should be a question, because how are they all thinking this? And I've never seen any evidence of this. Georges explains it, but in a very diplomatic way. I'm sure I would love to know what the queens were really saying behind the scenes. But I don't know. It's very, very weird. I want to go back to the main stage workshop. Chanel, she's fading into the background. And I think she has seen the writing on the wall. And she's just given up. She's going through the motions. And she's like, I'm going to do it. But it just sort of feels like she knows she's not going to win. She knows, what are the odds that she wins now? Slim. We're at the halfway point and she has 0 badges. I feel like she's given up. I don't know if you've gotten that sense.
I can see that. I can definitely see that because now it's almost become a thing among all of the girls. Like, is this the week you're going to get a badge? Where and even they're all sort of saying like, well, I'm not gonna snip Chanel because she hasn't gotten a badge yet. Like, nobody wants to be the one to punch down at that point. But she's also not. When we get to the roast, her roast, she wasn't roasting, she was hosting. Yes. At that point, it was very much I am just going to go into the mode that I am when I'm at Mickey's or wherever it is that she performs, She's in Vegas, and I'm just gonna kind of say what I normally say and pull out the old standbys and not try anything new. Yeah. I can definitely see that, which I enjoy Chanel. I definitely, she is that old school, she's a fun, safe queen, if that makes sense. She
is a relic of a past that we don't see anymore, especially on this show. And Roxxxy sort of straddles the line between that past.
Yes.
But Chanel very much is deep, deep in that old pageant queen, drag queen, which is funny because a lot of the Gen Z and the younger millennial fans love that era. And I wish Ru would do a season of just that era. It would be really fun. She knows it very well, but also it'd be fun to see those people again.
So who would you, let's say that even if it was a shortened season, who would you put on there? You could have Chanel. You could have like a Chad Michaels.
You could have, it's so funny is she has evolved, but Alyssa Edwards comes from that past. So does Coco.
You could do Alyssa. You could do Tempest
du jour, Pork Chop. I'm sure there's a ton of queens we're missing, but they're gonna. What's funny is the people who are gonna name them, not us, are much younger than us. Know, and there are people. What's so funny is I know someone who's currently reading, I'll say, a musical about that era of gay life in LA, and there's all these unknown drag queens who they just missed the boat on Drag Race when it first came out. And then they're like, I happen to know that there's one that's kind of iconic who's in that style here in Los Angeles named Jules. And she's from Long Beach. And like, there's all these people I'm sure that still exist. They just never got that chance, Yeah. The show moved on before when they couldn't do it anymore. I don't know. It would be an interesting concept for somebody to do. Another thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention earlier, but it's actually relevant now, is as we see later in the show, when Roxxxy gets snipped, she's pissed. And we see in the preview for next week, she's really pissed. But what's very odd is several times at the beginning, the middle, in this runway day, at the end, she mentions in confessionals and in the room that she thinks that unless she wins, she's going to get the snip. So I don't know why she's pissed.
Because she knows how to make good TV. I think that she sees this as the possibility for, making some good TV next week. Because I'm sure it's one of those that it'll be an argument, it'll be a disagreement, and then the next day it's a new day in the workroom, and her and Angeria will be arm in arm, or they'll be where they come around the table and it will be a review of the argument the night before, but it'll be all smiles.
Yeah.
It'll be like Gottmik saying, while she makes her weird faces, so if we all worked through a disagreement between last night, and I know that she had to do it because da-da-da-da and everything's fine, ha ha ha, and then, ooh, girl, she already and then everybody just kind of smiles and stands there next to each other. Because that's what happens every week with this. Even with Angeria last week, everybody was fine by the next day.
Yeah, true. Very good point. Yeah, once they slept it off and they were in their feelings. And then one last thing. I love that last week, that fucking bitch who was with Carson didn't know what flip fucking meant. And Carson had to do that dumb joke. And then they bring up gangbangs, and Ruta Lee's like, yeah.
Did I ever tell you that I was in a gangbang with Peter Lawford, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, the Crosby brothers, Thaddeus Arbuckle, Harold Lloyd.
And you're like, oh, okay, this bitch is going to go on and on and on. Like,
yeah.
Can I ever tell you about the time Louis B. Mayer choked me with his cock?
While he held my nose closed.
Michelle, Andy Griffith's balls smell like dick cheese.
And you're like, okay, thank you, Ruta Lee.
You're making references that 90% of your listeners will have no idea who you're talking about.
I once watched George Cukor fuck a cigarette boy, and then he couldn't come unless he lit my twat.
Oh, okay, thanks, Ruta Lee. That was very, very odd. Okay, thank you. Anyway.
Gloria Swanson could eat out.
It was like all these old-timey references that she had. Anyway, okay. Why don't we go on to the roast? I told you this off the air. I was gonna pull the roast, and then on the second watch, I was like, "There's nothing really to say," and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it was on the whole. I think it was fine. Right? Yeah, I think it was fine. But there were no big blunders, and I don't think there were too. Honestly, I don't even think there were big swings out or hits out of the ballpark. I just think it was a very competent roast, which made it not worth pulling. But did you have any big thoughts on the roast? I
said I thought Chanel did a great job of hosting. I mean, it had that feeling of that. I very much enjoyed Georges. I thought that Georges, it was fun watching her get out of her comfort zone a little, with the look, and then that I thought was really good. And for some reason, the fact that Plastique had a cigarette in her hand the whole time, that made me giggle more than some of the jokes did.
The way that I wanted to fuck Georges. Georges in that getup is like literally, I think I could masturbate to it. I haven't tried, but just Georges,
But for those of you at the exclusive tier,
I already have a list of people that I want to fuck once I'm in Poppy Face. Georges.
Okay.
Even though I think Georges would be like, I'd want to leave as soon as it. And then fuck, marry, kill. So in terms of Latinos, kill would be.
Well, you have to say who the three are. You have to let us know who the three are.
Here are the three: Georges, David Archuleta, and Isai Morales.
Oh, I don't know who that last one is.
People have to Google it. So kill Isai Morales. Okay. Fuck Georges. Marry David Archuleta. Taylor's looking up Isai Morales right now.
Really?
I said I'd kill him.
Oh, okay. Was that why you put him in so that you could kill him?
Yeah. I just put him in just to kill him. Well, okay, I needed to put another Latino in.
Okay, and then what would you do with the other two? I was too busy.
Fuck Georges. Marry David Archuleta.
Okay, I could see that.
Here's what's funny. Everyone's thirsting over David Archuleta. He's not even that cute anymore. But man, I would marry and fuck the shit out of him. Man, David Archuleta. Ugh. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to know my type, it's David Archuleta. Oh, and also Georges in that getup. A little Chicano boy. Oh my God.
A little Femi Chicano boy.
Oh.
Because you like him Femi.
You know that thing of like whoever it is melting out of the chair? Is that Wendy Williams or something?
I think so, yeah.
That's me with Georges in that getup. Oh my God. And I don't mean little boy literally.
No. I knew what you meant.
I'm mad at some fictitious person that doesn't exist. Okay, let's talk about let's save Gottmik for the end. We'll save Gottmik for the end. Let's talk about every other drag queen and their pre-written jokes.
Okay.
What is your take on this? You think the producers wrote it? Did you say everything you said earlier in your spiel, or?
I think that they were everybody was way too comfortable with the jokes for them to have not been pre-written. And I think also seeing the big notebooks where everything was pre-typed out, I absolutely 100% think that this is the season of no one is getting negative notes. Nobody is getting negative critiques, and they didn't want to take the chance of anybody completely shitting the bed. So I absolutely 100%. Were the jokes funny? Yes. Was the delivery good for most of them? Yes. But I absolutely think that the jokes were pre-written.
Okay, so we're in agreement. We'll stipulate that jokes are pre-written. Where you and I disagree is I think the girls were told there will be a roast. Here are the contestants. We want to make sure you look good. You can pre-write the jokes. You can have them written. You can do whatever you want. But here are the jokes. I mean, here's the premise. Do whatever you want. And I say that because there are varying qualities of the jokes. So like Chanel and Nina's jokes aren't as good as some of the others. Okay. And I think it's because they either wrote the jokes themselves or they didn't have funny people who could write the jokes.
Okay.
The other people, save for Gottmik, I think went to friends. Supposedly, I was reading online that Darian Lake has said, she didn't specify this roast joke, but in the past has written roast jokes for people. I think there's some sort of running joke about Bob writing jokes for people. So there are probably drag queens who they went to, or maybe that they know who helped them write jokes, or they have funny friends or comedian friends or something where they hired someone to write the jokes. By the way, for any drag queens listening, if you want to hire me to write roast jokes for you, hit me up at joebatanzafterthought.media and I will do it. But I think that I thought about it, and there are people who are like, oh my God, but like, honestly, like, these queens aren't sewing their own clothes. They're having designers sew the clothes. And they don't mention that on the show. It's kind of just sort of like, ooh, like not talked about. So how is this any different? I actually don't have a problem with it, even though I do love seeing them bomb and do these horrible things. But there were some good jokes in there. I enjoyed it. There wasn't really much to say about them. And you're right, the delivery varied. But yeah, they were clearly pre-written. I don't know why they're pretending like they weren't. And they were fine. That's my take on it. Now let's go ahead. Do you have something to say about this?
Well, I one thing that we really didn't really address, which is Bob's appearance.
Yeah.
Bob coming out and doing the poet laureate sort of thing. It was a nice surprise. I mean, I enjoy Bob as a performer. Explain to me, if you can, why everybody thinks the phrase "is the bus still running" is supposedly so funny.
I don't know. I've heard RuPaul make the joke, so maybe they're just giving RuPaul like some low-hanging fruit to laugh at. I don't know, and I don't know what the origins of the joke, what it means. I don't know anything about it. Maybe there's some drag historians or drag or gay lingo historians who can tell us why that's funny.
Yeah, because it's something that has come up a couple of times in the past. And I mean, Bob's appearance was dumb. It was this like weird poem that was the joke, but it took too long to get to the punchline.
Yes. Also, they made Bob get up in full geesh just to do that one little moment for no apparent reason. Like, I could see if Bob was the host of the show and brought all the queens up, but no. Walked out, did the bit, and left. Like, oh, okay. Well, there you go. So it was a very strange moment. Did you have any, before we get to Gottmik, any specific comments on any of the queens apart from the ones you've done?
I mean, I thought Plastique was funny. I like Georges. I'm trying to like go through in my head really fast everybody that was there. Chanel and Nina were okay. Roxxxy was average. Roxxxy had a low bar, the low bar of expectation, because she had done so bad in her previous two that I think she did, fair. She did an okay job, but didn't knock it out of the park. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. I'm very curious on your take on the Gottmik stuff.
So, really quickly, just some notes I have on individual ones. I did read that Plastique's joke about topping Georges was a sort of a spin on a joke Jinx made, so I want to note that. Another proof that the jokes were written, Angeria didn't know the song from Chicago. So she's like, the song from Chicago, the name on everybody's lips is gonna be Jinx. And I was like, you can't sing the tune? Okay. And then Nina West, I felt that they did her dirty.
She might not have been allowed to. She might not have been allowed to sing it for copyright reasons.
Yes, they would have been in the clear, but yes. Okay. Sometimes a lot of these corporations can make it safe. You're right. Okay. So Nina, I think they did her dirty because her jokes weren't crazy different than your average person, and the other people got sweetened laughter and she really didn't, and I didn't think that was fair. I don't know why they did that to her. I didn't think to play into a story. And then Gottmik. Look, I think I've seen the discourse online. I think people are starting.
Wait. Can you
explain what happened?
Explain what the discourse is, so that people know.
So everybody listening, if you don't know this, you're right. I should have pulled that clip. Actually, someone very wisely put a side by side. You know what? Future Joe, put the audio of that clip right here.
I do not want to badmouth you since God already did.
I am not going to stand up here and badmouth you because clearly God already has.
I want to thank you so much for fighting the war against terrorism and subtlety.
You are consistently fighting the war on homophobia and subtlety, clearly.
May is insane. Like, if you look at it, it's just like model, actor, singer, you name it, she's it.
Influencer, dancer, actor, you name it, she's fucked it.
Will and Grace was really the best you could do. It just...
And girl, for real, your run in Hairspray was truly the best you could do.
Okay, so we just heard the clip, and as you can see, she literally, it's not even like I said, Plastique did a spin on a joke that Jinx did. It's not even, she literally did the jokes nearly word for word and just tailored it to each individual drag queen. And literally, I mean, not even different comics, like the same comic, and just literally ripped off her jokes. And you know what? I'd even forgive it if in the workroom or in Untucked, she said, you know what? I'm just doing a bunch of Nikki Glaser jokes. And I think even Nikki, I don't know what Nikki Glaser's take on this is, but I think even Nikki Glaser would have appreciated it. But Gottmik has commented on this because it erupted, and she said pretty much, she's in a weird kind of way doubled down. She has said like, oh, I'm paraphrasing everybody. Do you think do you think everybody wrote their own jokes? Why wouldn't I borrow the jokes from my queen, Nikki Glaser? Bitch, the controversy isn't that you didn't write your jokes, right?
Right.
2, we think we all could tell. No one was fooled that they wrote their own jokes. 2, you wouldn't have said anything unless you were caught, you know? And it's also just so brazen. It's like, I'm going to write a musical, and I wrote The Ghost of the Opera, and they were all the songs. It's like, this is one of the most famous, these are Comedy Central roasts. It's not that she went and dug and found some, old Dean Martin roast and Lucille Ball's cackling in the background. It's like, these are roasts that are like available. Why? It's weird.
Right. On Comedy Central, like you could go to Comedy Central's YouTube page and watch Nikki Glaser do these exact.
I will bet you there is a compilation called Best of Nikki Glaser Roasts, and she just watched that and was like, "Oh, that'll be good for Vanjie. That'll be good." And that she thought no one would pick up on this.
Yeah, I think the fact that she said it because she got caught.
Yes, 100%.
that is part of this, and she didn't borrow them; she stole them. Outright. Unless she has something where the only way that she could be saved is if Nikki Glaser comes out and says, Gottmik reached out to me, asked if she could use and I gave her my full blessing. That's the only way that this isn't going to continue to bite her.
I'm going to contrast this with Katya. I've criticized Katya in the past because both of her Snatch Game characters were completely ripped off from Kristen Wiig. They're both characters Kristen Wiig has done.
Mm-hmm.
Susie Orman and Bjork. And
right.
She ripped off the characterization. Okay. But she didn't rip off the jokes. She just ripped off the characterization. So, I mean, it's still not good, but it's not horrible, right?
Right.
But in this case with Gottmik, she literally took the fucking jokes. And here's the thing, too, is all this does, and people are just coming to the realization, is, and I've seen this discourse online, people saying, like, they're still in their weird delusion stage. They should be the voted delusional one. Where they're like, why would she do this? She's so funny. And I'm like, no, she's never been funny. This is a thing. Everything has been pre-written. Because now people are going back to the old roast. Because they're like, she was so funny on her old roast. Why would she do that? And now they're going back to their old roast and finding how all those jokes were stolen by Greg Giraldo and all these different people. So, and then they're like, well, what about her Snatch Game? Everything, bitches, has been pre-written. She didn't write any of this stuff. And so they're barely coming up to that realization. And it's like this. So it's just proving the essay that I had a while ago, which is they're trying to sell, and Gottmik herself is trying to sell herself as this all around great queen. And she's not. She's good at fashion, and she's really struggling elsewhere, and she's just trying to she's trying to, tread water on the other stuff. And she strangely has pulled the wool over everybody's eyes, because everybody loves a story that they want to root for somebody. And so, yeah, we'll see how, but here's the deal is the ability to survive this really depends on how much goodwill she already had. So like if this were, who's a queen that everybody hates?
Mimi, I'm first.
If this is Mimi, I'm first, they would, oh my God, they would fucking run her out of town. There'd be like, those big lawsuits. Like what are those big lawsuits where everyone joins together and sue someone?
Joint class action.
Yeah, joint class action lawsuit against Mimi and First. And we knew Mimi and First would do this, right? There is anger towards Gottmik, but I bet you it'll blow over in a bit because they just love Gottmik. Any other thoughts on the roast?
No, I mean, I think I pretty much summarized it in that regardless of who wrote the jokes and how they were performed, I think we laughed several times, and it was by far the best one that they've had.
I agree. All right, the runway is Atomic Blonde. Any big comments, any big notes from our resident fashion expert, Taylor the Latte Boy?
Nothing really stood out to me as absolutely amazing. I do like that Nina did something. I expected somebody to do a very Atomic Age, like 50s or 60s kind of look. And if it made sense to me that Nina would do that, I liked Nina's hair in particular with the big mushroom cloud coming out of it. That just felt very Nina to me. The outfit, though, by the time they all got standing on the runway, it looked like it was falling apart. Oh, like there was like a weird like cardboard flap or something hanging off the bottom of the front. That was the one thing that really stood out. But I thought that I liked Plastique's. I liked the idea of her doing something that was very sleek versus this whole apocalyptic, post, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome kind of thing. I thought Plastique is, to me, the fashion plate of the season. She's the one that I get most excited to see what she's going to bring out on the runway every week. And just beautiful as a girl and very, very cute as a boy. Yeah. Very, very, very cute as a boy. But that's kind of really my thoughts on the look. And I thought Vanjie with short hair actually was a good look for her. But that's it.
All right. Very good. All right. On the main stage, RuPaul names Plastique and Angeria the top 2 All-Stars of the week, force them to face off in a lip-sync battle for their charities. The song Be My Lover by, is this right? Is it La Bouche?
La Bouche.
In the end, Angeria was named the winner of the lip sync, and she took her time and some prayers before she chose Roxxxy Andrews as the latest victim of the Ruby Snippers. Taylor the Latte Boy, any final thoughts on the episode?
I think that there is something. Rue seems to be enjoying herself more on the panel than she has in the past. And I noticed that last week with watching Roxxxy, spiral was fun. And then the line today when Angeria says, "Can I pray on it?" She goes, "You can, but you got to get out of Mama's shot." Was a funny, that was a very real moment to me. That was a genuine, like, yeah, that's great. Move the fuck over kind of thing.
Yeah. I always like when RuPaul sort of breaks and does it. And it's sort of more RuPaul and not, TV RuPaul.
But it was a great episode. It was a great episode.
It was a fun episode. You're right. And we had stuff to talk about. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. Be sure to join us next week and every week as we continue to discuss, dissect, and deconstruct each brand new episode of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Star Season 9. So for Taylor the Latte Boy and myself,
sashay away until next week.
Thank you for listening to Drag Race Recap. Have something to say? Leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/afterthoughtmedia. You can also email us at dragracerecap@afterthought.media. For more Drag Race and LGBTQ content, support us over at patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia. This podcast was produced by Sabrina Vadabancourt. Taylor the Latte Boy has another podcast. It's called Pod Is My Co-Pilot. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow Taylor on Instagram at PIMCTaylor. Follow Joe Batance on Instagram at Joe Batance. Special thanks to these expensive tier Patreon supporters. Anonymous, April Pacheco, Astute Girl, Brad Coley, Doofus Maximus, Effie Wop, E. Smith, Emma, Vilskett Pony, Flying Suki, Humble Pine, Isaac Martin, Jade Thomas Plank, Kathy Zender, Lauren Eckert, Lucy Carrasco, Luke Stamen, Mary S., Matt Stewart, Mike Yeager, Nikki Baker, Poppy Woods, Ricardo the Hoodeda, Robert NYC, Sarah Yu, Runner Brandon, Tom Bombs, Travi Cosmos, and Troy Anderson. Drag Race Recap is an Afterthought Media podcast.